Attention to detail and scope of work is key. Most investors don't understand scope of work. Understand your scope of work, attention to detail. So I'm a very B-class investor myself, right? I love to invest in areas that are up and coming, and I love to do phenomenal finishes, right? My market is a bit more expensive than your typical Michigan markets, right? Or if you were to say in Ohio, like it's more expensive than Cleveland. Or if you were to say it's more expensive than West Virginia or Kentucky, right? I have a more expensive market that I work in, right? So I don't scale as fast. If I were to work in another market like Detroit or Cleveland, I would have over 100 rental units right now, right? So I don't have that. But why, right? But maybe I'm still scaling at the same possible feature, but just with a less number of units. It's because if you look at my portfolio, I've got 100% occupancy across my entire portfolio. I don't even have 97% occupancy. I have 100% occupancy.
All right, welcome to the show. My name's Julian Castle. Today I'm sitting down with someone who's quietly becoming one of the most efficient deal makers in the Midwest. His name is Al Ahmed. In just a few years, he's gone from being a corporate engineer to a full-time real estate investor and agent. He closed 80 deals last year, and he's on track to do 120 this year. He's running a 5-person team, and he owns about 15 rentals himself. And he's completed quite a few BRRRRs, I think 32 if I'm not mistaken. He systematized his business and, built a loyal investor base, and he's scaled nearly to 600,000 in revenue. So he's just getting started. I think this is your second year in real estate.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah. How you doing? Go ahead.
yeah, man. Julian, thanks for having me on the show. Really excited to kind of talk and bring my life story and talk to the viewers about what we have going on over here. Yeah, I got started in real estate it's been roughly 2.5 years. Always
Okay.
dabbled in it for the last couple of years, but yeah, I've kind of really dived, head first in the last 2.5 years, and it's definitely paid off.
Amazing, amazing. So, all right. So tell us a little bit about, your background. So what pushed you from like being an engineer to like going into real estate?
Yeah, man. So I moved to America in 2005 as an immigrant. Most of my family, they usually go to the UK or they go somewhere in Europe to study. But my family
Yeah.
really wanted to have the American education system. And my dad is a businessman overseas. He does real estate as well. He's also involved in a couple of other businesses as well. So we moved here, typical brown family household. They're like, be an engineer, be a doctor, or be a lawyer. So I really only had three choices, when I was growing up. So
Yeah.
I was very studious growing up. Always I was a hustler. I had some small, businesses while I was in college. Graduated engineering, loved it. Worked for a multinational company. Was working in their consulting division, and then from there, I developed a passion. I was like, hey, I want to start my own company. I was, considering a couple different options at the time. I was thinking about logistics, trucking, because I've worked in the supply chain sector. I also thought about real estate as well, and
Yeah.
ultimately ended up, coming across bigger pockets, and I learned about house hacking, and from there, I house hacked my first property 2 months after I
Yeah.
graduated college, and it was a $347,000 deal, and I was 22 years old. Didn't know anything about real estate. I just read, I was watching Brandon Turner, Bigger Pockets, David Green. I was like, hey, you know what? I'm just gonna dive headfirst. I'm a risk taker. Let's see, where it gets me. And from there, it kind of turned into something huge. And right now, I'm 26 years old.
Nice, nice. Okay. So that's pretty good background there, story. So tell us, okay, so you mentioned, we talked a little bit, um, before, because you were working at an engineering job, right?
Hmm.
And I believe you were talking about, about real estate with all your teammates, right? And so at what point,
Yeah,
did you realize, okay, like let me quit this and go full in, because
yeah.
a lot of people never make that step.
For sure, Julian. So my story was kind of like, I bought that duplex, then I read a book called BRRRR by David Green, and I thought I learned everything about doing BRRRR deals, which I really didn't, right? I mean, the book was phenomenal, great book to get started, right? I read that book and I came across a wholesaler who had a phenomenal deal in Dayton, Ohio, which is about like 60 miles away from me. And at that time, it was $100,000, and mind you, I had very little money, right? So I was very risk adverse. I didn't know what I was doing, but I wanted to do a burn. That time I was working at my corporate job. So I reached out to the wholesaler. I was like, hey, I'm really interested. This looks like a very easy, phenomenal deal. I read this book. I feel confident. Let's do it. Right? I
Yeah.
didn't have a single contractor, didn't have a property manager, didn't have anything. Locked it up, put down $5,000 earnest money, and I trusted my gut. Did some, research on Zillow, and at that time, I was working my corporate job, so I was going around telling everyone about like, hey, I'm gonna do this, strategy. It's called the BRRRR method, and we're gonna pull back all of our money out of the deal. And we were just chatting about it in the office, right? And a lot of people were interested. A lot of people were like, oh, what is this guy talking about? Like, this doesn't make sense. Okay, you want to get started in real estate? Sure, you're 22 years old. Go ahead and do it, right? So I had very little money at that time, and I found a hard money lender out of Phoenix, right? Never worked a hard, work
Yeah.
with hard money, and so he asked me to put down 40% down, right?
Wow.
And because it was my first time, I'm 22 years old. He's like, put down 40%. I'll give you a lower interest rate, but he, I guess charged me a lot of points at that time, and I was still figuring things out. And so everything that I had, I put down about 70% of what my capital that I had. It was 40% of the down payment. I put it down, and I was pretty much left with nothing. I didn't even realize that you needed to, have money to pay for the renovations, then pull money out, right? So I was
Right.
scrambling for money, right? And I was getting my paycheck.
Yeah.
That time I was making, a little bit. I was making around $80,000 a year, which was phenomenal, but you still have very high taxes. So I was talking, and
Yeah.
they were getting very fed up at my office. Like, why is this dude, always so excited? As soon as 5 o'clock hits, he leaves, and I'm like going to Dayton 3, 4 times a week, right? It's about 60 miles, about an hour drive from me. And
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
some point, I was putting out some, marketing material. I found a brokerage that had investors, and I joined it at the same time as well. So I was just getting excited. I was printing out marketing materials. I was doing research on birds during my job, and they were like, "Hey, man, like you cannot talk about real estate in the office. You need to stop, right? I understand you love it, but keep it outside of the office, right?" So very soon, I had a performance review that came up, and they brought this up again. They were like, and I stopped talking about it. They were like, "Hey, man, like." I understand, like, your performance seems to have gone down. Even though it didn't, I was increasing the revenue of the company continuously. I was working very, very hard. And they're like, your performance is, like lacking. You're always talking about real estate. You can't print real estate stuff at the office. I don't want you talking about real estate again in this office. And the very next day, I just had like a falling out, and I was like, wow, like I'm so passionate about this. These guys are over here talking about Thursday night trivia, and these guys over here talking about Pilates in the morning and golfing on Saturdays, and I'm trying to do something for myself, and they're putting me down. So I was like, you know what,
Yeah.
I'm done. And 2 days later, I gave them not a 2 week notice, a 1 week notice. When I'm done, I'm actually done. I'm not even working 2 more weeks. I was like, I'm gonna finish the rest of this week, and I'll work till Tuesday, and I'm done. And that was the end of my corporate world journey.
Okay, cool. All right. So tell us a little bit about how you got that deal done because that was your first deal. So
Yeah,
I'm sure there's a lot of learning experiences. So how'd you find the money to do the renovations?
yeah.
The rehab.
So, man, at that time, man, it was tough. I had very little money left. I was, making, payments at that time for my car that I had. I was living by myself at home. My parents were overseas at the time, and I am not a person to take help from anyone, right? So whatever I have, I'm going to do what I can with what I have. So I had just enough to cover about $6,000 or $7,000 worth of work. So I spent everything I had, got a credit card that had 0% interest on it. I got a credit card
Wow.
for a whole year, right? I was like, you know what? I'm going
Yeah.
to use this credit card. If everything goes wrong, I can feed myself with this credit card. And when I get my check, I'll pay back that credit card. So it was a Chase Freedom that I got, right, at that time. I opened that
Got it.
credit card
Yeah.
up. And that's how I was living for about a month and a half or so. And the contractors, very tough. Oh my God, I got screwed over, right? I had about 5 contractors walk the property. The first one was like, "Hey, we'll do it." The second contractor came in. He came in like $50,000 more than I thought it would be. I was like, "Wow, the deal doesn't work anymore. This is going to be more than what the ARV is of the property, right?" The third contractor came
Yeah.
in. He was like, "Hey, man, I can help you out." He was also my age as well at that time, and he was very new. He was just getting started. I was like, you know what? You seem like a trustworthy guy. I feel like you won't screw me over. A lot of trial and error. We got in, got the job done, and we did a very successful refi. I only had about $6,000 or $7,000 left in the deal after we refied everything, and I got my money back.
Wow. Okay, so you bought it for 100,000. So you were all in. So 100,000, and what was the renovations cost, and what was the ARV?
Yeah, so I spent roughly around $35,000 on the renovations, and the ARV was right around the $200,000 mark. It was like 205-ish.
So you were all in 135, and your ARV was 200,000.
Exactly. But
So you
but I had another issue that came
uh-huh.
up, right?
What happened?
Man. So if you know anything about HVAC, right? A lot of different properties have different HVAC systems. The typical one is, forced air, right? Um,
Uh,
so this is a very interesting situation because this property was built in 1895, right? And what
yeah.
they were using back then was radiators, right? And
Okay.
the radiator was working perfectly fine, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, wow, this is fine. I didn't really have means to check for it. I didn't understand what a sewer scope was that time. I didn't understand, what radiators were. I was like, you know what? We have a furnace. We need to fix it. We'll fix it. The entire
Right.
radiator goes out after, right? After I do the renovations on the property. It was a pitch perfect deal, right? Once I
Yeah.
rehabbed and got my money back out, I had zero money left in the deal. But
Right.
I mean, I even got some money back. It was phenomenal. I spent very little, figured out the appraisal, but the radiator went out. I had to redo the ductwork of the entire property, rip out drywall, right? Put a new furnace, and put a new AC system in there.
Ooh,
And that was
sounds
after, right? And
expensive.
I didn't have money to do it.
Yeah.
And I found some guy, I'm not going to say who it is, obviously. It's probably one of, the trashiest contractors you can work with to do the job.
Yeah.
And it took me about
Yeah.
2 weeks to do the work. I had to keep on begging him to go down there. He took he had to pay for his gas money to go up to Dayton. He's a guy from Columbus, and it was just a complete shit show. But we ended up doing it. He ended up doing the entire work, at that time, and we ended up spending with duct work and everything. It was like around $8,000.
Okay.
So
Okay. So all right. So you were all at 135, and then you got your money out, and so do you have the property? Or did
I
you
still I
sell
still
it?
have it till date. It's doing phenomenal. It became student housing for girls at the University of Dayton. So I've got 5 girls renting from me over there. I've got a phenomenal property manager that's there. He's handling the property, but I still kept it. I'm not much of a seller. I don't like to sell my properties. I like to stack and keep my properties.
Okay. Cool. All right. All right. Awesome. So all right. So walk us through. You have 15 rentals right now,
Yep.
right? Okay. How much are you cash flowing a month?
Oh man,
And
that's
what's your
yeah.
valuation?
Yeah, man. So right now, we're at roughly, so we're going to be at over 21, 22-ish in like a week and a half, right? We're going to have
Uh huh.
over $3 million worth of assets managed by me. So right now, there's this little bit of a secret, right, to rentals, right? Most guys that own properties in the same area that I do, they get way less cash flow than I do. There's a secret,
Okay.
and it goes attention to detail on your renovations. And most of my properties are birds, right? What I do is I
Yeah.
have the perfect system for renovations on birds with recessed can lightings, accent walls. We do birds very similar to flips, right? So that people that live there love where they're living, right? We go all out. We spend extra on renovation, but we make the properties very, very, very freaking nice, right? And that way we're able to charge market rents in all of our properties. Properties where I have colleagues that rent in the same exact area, they're charging 1350, 1400. Property next door, which is mine, I'm charging 1750 a month. So I'm charging
Okay.
$300 more a month, and that just makes my cash flow go crazy. So, I mean, I'd say net positive cash flow amongst all my properties. I don't have the exact number in my head because I don't pull out any profits. I just let it go straight to the PM account. I would say it's
Uh huh.
probably somewhere in the 2,000 something $100 range, net positive.
Okay. Okay. Cool. So you're getting about $2,000. And what's the? You said you're close to $3 million in valuation next week.
But next week,
Is
yeah. So we're going to be roughly at 3 million plus in valuation once we close out. We got a couple properties under contract right now that we're buying. We're going very aggressive right now and buying Columbus properties.
awesome. Okay. Cool. All right. So interesting. All right. Cool. So walk us through your active income, right? Because you're making, almost $600,000. So what are you doing in order to be able to generate all that money?
Yeah, man. So last year is when I generated around 600,000 in gross revenue, right? It's not actual
Hmm.
profit. Actual profit turned out
Okay.
to be right around $400,000, right? Because
Okay.
we have a lot of overhead that we're also accounting for as well, right?
Yeah.
I also add a ton of equity to my net worth every single year just by doing BRRRR deals. I take on partnerships, right, which allow me to scale faster. But I'm able to add about 30 to 35,000, sometimes 40,000, depending on the deal, right? To my net
Yeah.
worth every single deal, right? And that really helps your net worth grow really, really fast, right? So my active income, I'm a real estate agent here in Columbus, right? I don't just operate in one market. I operate in multiple different markets. But I didn't
Yeah.
just start all of a sudden operating three different markets, right? It took me about 2 years to get started, right? I focused on just one market, right? And I chose the hardest market in my current state and city. And I worked that. I understood it. I became the best agent at our office working buyers in that specific market. No agent gets to a BRRRR deal faster than I do in our office, right? And that's because we developed the right systems and processes, and we're providing the right amount of value to our clients, right? With the correct deal flow that's very categorized and very systematic to them, right? And they're getting it consistently, right? And that's why I have very high overhead costs because I spend more money than anyone else on virtual assistants, on deal flow, on marketing, right? I spend more money than anyone else on this, and we make sure we are giving buyers the best deals possible, whether it's on market, whether it's off market, and therefore my revenue is also very high. We focus on quality, right, over quantity, but we still are able to hit our quantity minimum.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Quality, no quantity. Interesting. All right. So what do you do? So you source these deals, right? You mentioned on market, off market. Obviously, there's two parties, right? Buyers and sellers,
Yep.
right? Sellers have to be okay with with what the buyer is
Yep.
having. So tell us a little bit about how you do conversations, with the sellers. Obviously it always starts with the seller,
Hmm.
and it ends with the buyer, right?
Of course.
So how do you structure these conversations with the sellers so that you guys can get to a, an agreed price or terms that work out for your buyer, and you also get your commission?
So it's a little different because I'm not a wholesaler, right? So I am an
Right.
agent, so I have to represent one party. I cannot represent both parties, right? It becomes a conflict of interest at that point,
Mm.
right?
Oh,
So,
really?
yep,
Okay.
it becomes a conflict of interest, right? So you have to choose one
There's
side
no
to.
dual agency
There
in
is,
in
but we try to avoid that because it still becomes very muddy when you're doing volume like myself, right? So you want to focus
Okay.
on one party. And typically, almost always, I represent buyers over sellers. But that doesn't mean that we generate leads. We generate a ton of seller leads, right? Within my brokerage, we've got a ton of agents that are cold calling, right? And we share internal deal flow. And again, it's very little stress on the sellers because we're cold calling a lot of the sellers. We're asking them, hey, do you want to sell your property? Because I'm interested. I want to buy your property, right? Because I'm allowed to do that. I want to buy your property. I want to find out more information about it. Cool. And we keep it very little. We keep it, soft touches. We're chatting with them. We find out, okay, if you were, to get an offer, right, what would you take, right, on your property? We know what areas are worth very easily. So what I do personally, I've got cold callers that are overseas. I leverage cold callers, virtual assistants from the Philippines who are cold calling,
Yeah.
right, in different markets. We target specific areas to cold call. We have different lists. We go by brute force, right? We're hammering down, we're skip tracing. We go by brute force, and we probably called the entire city already. Now we're just making rounds back and following up with the sellers again and building networks and relationships. What usually happens is when we find one seller, we can usually find a lot of portfolio sellers. When one of them wants to sell, right? One of my very first, BRRRR deals, right? We came across a seller who had a portfolio of 9 properties that he bought right after the 2008 crisis, right? From the
Yeah.
banks, right? And these were he bought them for 10, 15, $20,000, right? All beat
Yeah.
down. He never did anything to them. I bought one of them. I sold 7 others from him, right?
Wow.
So usually you can
Nice.
find these, and imagine you can find 3, 4 of those guys. Now you've got 3 times 7. That's 21 properties that you can broker, right? Broker or you can buy
Yeah.
yourself. So that's usually what happens in these markets. A lot of these guys in these C-class areas, for example, they bought a ton of property after the '08 crisis, and usually they're wanting to sell and they're cash out and go and retire because they're not really in real estate. They just bought it because they could.
Right. That makes sense. Okay. Cool. All right, so you represent the buyer side, so you know what your buyers want, and you're just out there trying to look for those deals for
Yep.
those buyers and get the terms that they want. Um, so tell us a little bit about how you, I guess, get that process started for the buyer.
So in the very beginning, right, I work with a ton of buyers at any given time, right? I work with buyers that are, working in multiple different markets at any given time. But every single buyer, I have a very, very, very personalized touch with every single one of them, right? I use a CRM system, first of all. Very, very important.
Yeah,
As an agent, if you're not using it, you're doing it completely wrong, right? I'll say that in the beginning. I set up
yeah.
tasks with every single buyer, and I keep notes on every single buyer. John D. Rockefeller used to do the same exact thing. Whenever he met someone, he would write down notes about them. That's what I do. Whenever I meet someone, a buyer, I have literally notes about every single thing about them. So I know about every single one of my buyers. Again, I focus on quality, not quantity, right? So what happens is the volume that I do, although I have a ton of buyers, right? They're all very quality buyers. Each one of my buyers, I'd say I've got about a 30-40% return ratio that are buying more than one deal a year, right? And some of my buyers, they'll buy 7 or 8 deals a year, right? And that's because they're getting quality leads, right? So how do I onboard them, right? It's providing them with valuable information that they need, they want, and creating a personalized search, not just on market, but off market, and giving them exactly what they want based on their price range, their neighborhood rating, providing them with marketing materials, information that they want. Because a lot of them want to know, hey, how is the neighborhood, right? How is
Yeah.
the neighborhood? Next, how much can I get for rent? Next, what is this property actually worth and what am I buying it for? Right? Next is
Right.
a house is very simple. There's not many different components of it. It starts off from the roof, then you've got the siding, you've got the framing, right? You've got the HVAC, electrical, you've got the foundation, you've got the sewer stack. How is the condition of that? And all of my buyers have provided so much information that they know exactly how long a roof is going to last, how long a HVAC is going to last, how long a hot water tank is going to last, what does the foundation look like, what does the sewer stack look like, where's the main line, right? I broke down every single thing for them in my marketing information, right? I have a Google Drive that I provide them with all that info, and I do a deep dive on every single property that I send them. And I don't just send them a lot of properties. I send them about 2 to 3 properties a day, but they're very categorized, very specific to what they want and what they need. So they never feel overwhelmed because they get properties that they actually meet their criteria. Every single one of them.
Okay, great. All right, awesome. So that's really cool. That's really important. So you make sure and you find out all the details about the deal that they could possibly need to
Exactly.
know, so that they literally have a silver platter in front of them
Oh
with
yeah.
like
Oh yeah.
just what it is. And then so all right, and that's great. And so how much are these buyers usually paying, for the deals to you, in commissions? And I guess
Of course.
I'm sure price points always change,
Of course.
but
So if I'm doing an on-market deal, I typically I don't work for less than 3%, and my buyers,
mhm,
they're very well aware and they know that. A lot of agents work for 1%, 1.5, 2, whatever. I don't work for my buyers, right? I mean, yes, I do represent them, right? But at the end of the day, it's about the value that you can bring. And my buyers, as soon as they're onboarded, they know what value they're getting. So if they want to work with another agent that's willing to take 2%, you know, feel free. I don't mind, right? I already work with a ton of buyers. So on market deals, I take 3%, almost always, like 97 to 99% of the time, unless there's something that's wrong, right? Where a lender can't pay because it's a short sale or something, right? In that case, if I have a relationship, I have a $50 million buyer, which I'm doing with right now, right? I'm taking a 2% commission, and this is probably my one deal this entire year that I'm doing that. And because it's a short sale, and legally they can't pay more than 2%, right? And I don't want to charge my buyer for it because we're buying like
right.
50 properties this year together. That's our goal, right? That's what we want to do. But besides that, if it's off market, I have a $5,000 minimum on these deals because I spent so much money on cold calling. I have so many, I have cold callers, I have transaction coordinators, and I've also got 5 mentees within the office, right? I'm a team leader here. I manage multiple people, right, and kind of help them succeed. If you see my Instagram, you'll see some of my mentees that are on there that are also making, similar amounts of money to myself, right? And I help them design their systems and their processes, and they're doing, very good. They're doing very well. So it's just about systems, having the personality for it, wanting to talk to people. I love talking to people, and and understanding simple psychology about what buyers want and providing them with a platter of what they want, and they can never say no.
Amazing, amazing. Okay, cool. So tell us a little bit about more of your organizational structure and your all that. So how many people are you overseeing in total, and including mentees and all that, and what are you doing for them, or what do they do for you?
So I've got a total of 5 employees on payroll. One of
Hmm.
them is here in the U.S., and the other four are outsourced in the Philippines. And then
Hmm.
I've got a total of 5 mentees that are cold calling. So you can already tell my plate's always full every single day managing this. It's like a mini brokerage within a brokerage, right? We've got a ton of stuff that's going on, but we're always on track of our stuff, and we are always getting things done, right? So with my employees, I've got three that's focused on transaction coordination, strictly that. I've got within those three, I have a manager, right? So I have a manager that
Yeah.
manages all the transactions, deal write-ups, marketing material. I've got two guys. One focuses on Columbus, the other one focuses on Cleveland, and I've trained another one right now who's focusing and learning Dayton right now. We haven't started publishing Dayton yet. And I've got a manager that understands the market. He's been working in real estate for the last 5 years. And he overlooks every single thing. So we have quality control every step of the way, right? He checks every single information before it goes out every single day, right? We have a Slack server where I can see everything. And then on the flip side, I've got my video guy who's going in there. He's recording. He's posting the content for me. He's writing the captions. He's doing everything. We're filming about 15 videos a month. So we're trying to do more lifestyle, more real estate skits, and we're also working on a BRRRR model, kind of like a mentorship program to kind of help other people learn how to do the BRRRR model effectively and on quality products that actually work. And then on the flip side, I've got my mentees. They're also cold calling. They're doing roughly around 500 dials every single day through a dialer. They're using a 2-line to 3-line dialer, and they're doing about 500 dials a day, reaching out, connecting with sellers, and we're just having so much volume, bringing quality buyers, and it's been phenomenal.
Awesome, awesome. Okay. So tell me a little bit about how you get your mentees, and why they decide to work with you, and I guess what kind of offer do you have for them, etc.
Yeah, so my mentees, usually I look for young hustlers that are wanting to become successful in real estate. I don't just take anyone on because you know, if I took everyone on, you wouldn't believe the number of Instagram DMs that I get of people. Even like 2 hours ago, I got an Instagram DM after I posted a video. They're like, "Hey, I'd love to join in real estate, right? I'd love to become your mentee. I'd love to learn under you, right? I can't just take everyone on because that's not how it works. Because it takes my time, and I need to be compensated for that, right? So typically, I pay mentees a marketing fee, right? Which they're paid. It's just a fee that they get when they find deals, and the goal is that they learn how to cold call. The goal is they can learn how to optimize their systems, how to balance sellers, when to follow up with sellers. I go with them to their walkthroughs. Right on properties, we collect information. They understand how rehabs work. They come to my flips, my burrs, understand how I'm doing it. They meet my contractors, and they're kind of just on board to the start process. And then they're in track. I usually help them if they want to get their license to get that. If they want to go a different route, they also go that way as well. But they're compensated very well, and they love doing it. And I mean, I think my very first mentee that I ever took on last year, I think he made over close to $200,000, right? So in just 1 year, in his first year, right? He did better than I did in my first year, right? My very first year when I first got started. So I
Yeah,
was like, wow, that's phenomenal. It really is
that's
just
awesome.
systems,
That's
right? It's systems, processes, and understanding how it works.
that's amazing. Okay, cool. So let's get into that. The meat and potatoes, the systems, the processes, and understanding it. So what is all that?
Yeah. So again, as I repeated before, kind of onboarding your clients with a silver platter. That's literally what it is. There's not another agent that can be onboarded in Columbus. I mean, what value are you going to provide? And I work with investors primarily. I don't touch as many residential buyers. So I'm not in that game. I do still work residential buyers and I'll help if it's friends and family, but I don't go to showings, right, as much. If I need to go there, if I need to be present because of a new build or because of a home in an A-class area, yes, I'll be there, right? But the majority
Yeah.
of my properties that I sell are in areas that are developing, right? And these are usually
Right.
out-of-state investors that I meet through academies and groups, right? Most of these buyers are coming from mentorship groups that are in California. About 70 to 80% of my clientele, they come from California. I've got a ton of buyers from Florida, from New York. I don't really work with a lot of local buyers. So helping them understand, right? Being there for them and providing them with everything. So giving them contractors. I will never provide you with a contractor if I haven't personally worked with them or they haven't done work for me. So I've got a list of about 5 contractors that are phenomenal. And they understand our system. They understand neighborhoods and understand what quality of work is needed for every single neighborhood because I taught them this, right? I'm not just training my mentees and my employees. I'm also training my contractors as well. Hey, if it's this class of area, this is the renovations that are needed to hit this ARV. Hey, if you're in a different class of area, this is what renovations are needed. I tell them already, hey guys, we need to be at this rehab budget. Can you guys make this work? And the buyers are on board. We develop a scope of work right on these properties, on these BRRRRs, right? Or whether it's turnkey or whether it's larger multifamily. Like 20 minutes ago, before our call, I locked up a 15 unit, deal. I'm making over $35,000 on this deal, right? I locked it up. I locked up another deal in the morning. I'm making about $7,000 on this deal. So it's a matter of volume, a matter of understanding deals. If you can't explain a deal to your buyer, why should a buyer work with you? That's my philosophy, right?
Right.
I understand the deal very, very, very well to the T. And I can
Yeah.
talk to you all day long. I can talk to you 5 hours about a deal, right? Versus an agent who doesn't understand a deal, he'll say, oh yeah, the rent comps are this, the sales comps are this. Yeah, you can get this done. I can go into the nitty gritty of every single deal because I understand the market so well. So market understanding, providing your clients, a silver platter, making your contractors aware of what they need to do, right? Providing your clients with investment strategies. Like I have a Google Drive that goes to them as soon as they're onboarded on how to do Airbnb investing or BRRRR investing or long-term rental investing or larger multifamily investing. And I give so much information. I upload stuff to it every single month, and they're given that. It's just always updated.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So you give them a lot of just information, and then this information is obviously deep. Like there is surface level information, but you go very deep into the very details and nitty gritty. So that's able to provide you with the opportunity to explain why these deals are good and why they should buy them and why they should make money and all this.
Oh yeah.
Um, okay, great. So all right. So you're doing that now. What kind of just tell us a little bit about your tech stack? What kind of CRM are you using? What kind of lists are you pulling, or just kind of like what you do in the technology side of things?
Yeah, so I use a CRM system called Follow Up Boss. Very good real estate software. I mean, I'm sure there's a ton of other softwares out there. Wholesalers love to use RE Simply. I like
Mm-hmm.
to use Follow Up Boss. That was introduced to me through our brokerage, and a lot of other brokers use it as well. So it's something special. Everyone and anyone has access to it. I think it's like $60 a month. It gives you a
Yeah.
phone number. You can make smart lists. You can set up tasks. You can set up tags. Right. So efficiently creating your smart list, efficiently creating tags to understand if your investor is hot, warm, or cold. Right. And when they need to be transferred from hot to cold. My cold investors are treated the same exact way as my hot investors. They're just not being reached out to every single day, right? But they're still getting the categorized deal to them every single day, right? Until they ask me, hey, I don't want to see deals anymore. I'm looking at different markets, right? So if it's a hot investor, I'm following up with them. Um, I I also I would say I understand people very well as well. And what I
Yeah.
like to do is I like to outsource, but I understand psychology very well. Buyer psychology, right? I understand when I need to give a buyer their space versus I understand when, it's, time to, move forward and find them a right deal, right? So providing them with
Right.
value and kind of using the right systems, right? It kind of really, really helps. So I guess that's the answer to my question. So follow boss, and then cold calling wise, we pull from the auditor. I think every single auditor you can pull a list, right? You can
Yeah.
pull lists from certain zip codes. You can categorize them if you want singles versus 2 units or 3 units or 4 to 19 unit multifamily, and then we skip trace it. Once it's skip trace, we stop manually doing it. We use different systems. You can have, if you want, you can have PropStream skip trace for you, or you can have Skip Matrix do it for you. They skip trace it. We pay a lot of good dollars, and we get it back and reach out to these sellers.
That makes sense. Cool. All right. And then all right, that's wonderful. That tech stack is really cool, and that's what you need. And then now what I'm talking about is so how are you getting these buyers? Like you said, you find them in mentorship groups, out of California. So how are you doing the networking with these buyers? Because they're essentially the ones who are paying for all of the
Yeah.
you know of the deals, right? So
So a lot of these buyers, it gets very interesting, right? It gets very interesting because you want quality buyers and you want to be able to help buyers that want to help themselves, right? You need to be able to weed out
yeah,
people that don't want to help themselves and that are just wasting your time, right? Because time is the thing that I have very least of. So I need to be very efficient. I need to delegate tasks that need to be done, and I need to onboard and work with efficient buyers that want to buy and they are serious about scaling their portfolio. So I have an introductory call with them. I spend about 15 to 30 minutes, depending on if they're a novice or if they're intermediate or advanced. So I understand the scope, right? With most of these buyers, it becomes different once you hit 30 to 40 buyers, where most of these buyers will give you referrals, right? And I have a couple of different, I'm not going to name them, but I have a couple of different mentorship groups that I'm affiliated with. And they forward me buyers, and we work directly with them. And I also have a lot of buyers that I work with that pass me referrals. So it's gotten to a point where now I've closed 80 deals last year, right? I've closed over 50 deals already this year, and I just have so many buyers. And now my social media is being worked on. Whenever you look me up, also I'm on Bigger Pockets forums. Whenever someone has questions, I'm always on there answering questions. We're providing them value with neighborhood maps that we've built, providing them calculators, or if whenever I'm working and I create a template on Excel for something in real estate, I always upload it to my drive. So my investors always have that resource to them, right? So whenever someone needs something like an advice or a template or something like a network tracker or whichever, right? I always provide it to them. Or if it's a lender they need, hey, I need this lender. I got this deal. Cool. I don't need you to, give me anything back. Here's a lender that I'm working with that can help you. So really, just providing so much value that you automatically become valuable because I'm providing people with so much value versus a guy that's just out there hunting for business. I don't hunt for business. I'm happy to walk away from a buyer, right? I don't hunt for business, and that's why business finds me.
gotcha. Okay. You just become the go-to person. You just find any way,
You
anything that
become
any
so
resource.
valuable. The best PMs, right? Even my PM, he works with so many agents. He manages 2,000 doors, right, in Columbus. My PM sends me referrals on buyers, whereas he could have multiple other agents that are sending him business, but he understands how much business I'm sending them. So a PM, I flood them with business, right? Lenders, I flood them with business, whether it's a DSCR lender, whether it's a hard money lender, whether it's a residential lender. One of my residential lenders, I think we did over 30 deals last year together, right? So if I like you, I'm doing a lot of business with you. And automatically, you're going to give me business because you like me and I'm providing you with so much value, right? My hard money lender, I work with only two hard money lenders now, right? And my personal deals, I'm doing I've got like four hard money loans right now, and it's all from the same lender, right? I get the best rates. They give me business. They tell me I'm amazing. My buyers, you can read my Google reviews. They're like, Alfath has provided me with so much value that no other agent has ever been able to do in any other market either, right? So just really being the guy that can provide for them.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. All right. So tell me a little bit about the fix and flip. Okay.
Yeah.
So obviously fix and flip is, it's you gotta learn a lot of things, in between, to get a fix and flip done. So you mentioned some things that are important, which is like we got to keep the budget within this. Rehab has to be at a certain level, and so tell us, how you're able to find out how to do a fix and flip in a certain area so that you actually hit your numbers. Because I mean, dealing with contractors is hard, and it's just overall it's a process that you have to get really good
Yeah.
at.
For sure. So personally, myself, I'm not a big fan of fixing and flipping.
Hmm.
Others will, disagree with me 100%, and I totally respect their decision. I find doing BRRRR deals much more effective, right? But again, it depends market to market. If I was in other markets of the Midwest, right, and I'm not gonna talk shit about any other market, but if I was in other markets of in the Midwest, right, I would be wary, right? And I would probably fix and flip those deals. But because of the market that I'm in, right, it's a very relatively safe, low risk, very blue chip market. if you understand what I'm trying to say. Very blue chip market where we are at the right time, right? Right time and right place for everything, right? So most of my deals, I own all across Columbus. There's not a single
Right.
area which, that I sell that I don't own in, right? If I sell in
Yeah.
these areas that are value adds and blue collar, I own in that area. And that's why I know so much about it because I personally bought over there. And I personally own and I personally manage, right? So fixing and flipping and BRRRRs are, yes, they are kind of different, right? But there's a hybrid model in between doing BRRRRs and fix and flips. And if you can figure that out, that is the key to doing BRRRRs or fix and flips, right? Fix and flips, you need to go the extra mile, right? Add in accent walls, make sure everything is done properly. You stage the properties, right? You gotta if you don't have you can get away with not doing windows on a BRRRR deal. You need to do the windows on a fix and flip, right? Very
Yeah.
important, right? Everything needs to be new or needs to be very quality. So we spend on fix and flips, and I have done fix and flips. We're actually flipping a property right now. Even though I said I don't like it, we're flipping a property. We have one on the market. We're going to make roughly around $60,000 worth of profit between myself and my partner, right? So we'll fix and flip certain deals just to restack our capital. And I stay very liquid all the time as well. I'm a conservative investor, but I invest aggressively just on phenomenal deals. So really understanding like bathrooms, you need to make them look phenomenal, right? Absolutely phenomenal. Whether it's marble tiles, right, or a phenomenal backsplash, right, or gold handles or gold valves on the shower head, right? Make them look absolutely phenomenal. Kitchens, make them look absolutely phenomenal, right? Flooring, refinish the flooring, right, and make it look absolutely good, phenomenal. Paint, do glossy paint on the doors versus subpar, like a light paint that makes your rooms look bigger on the bedrooms and the living room. Keep it consistent, right? And then have stainless steel appliances, recessed can lightings that are adjustable, right? Use a good contractor that's quality. Make sure you're in time. Make sure you're also listing at the right time as well. You don't want to list in December and January when people aren't buying and it's a snowstorm, right? You want to list at the right time. Hold the property for 2 extra months. Bear the holding cost. I don't care about the holding cost. I'm going to deliver a good product that people will actually like, right? Very quality product people will actually like, and I'm going to list it under what the market comps are selling for. I'm going to make sure if the other comps have a garage and I don't, I'm going to list it well below, $10,000-$15,000, so it accounts for the budget, right? So just making sure my deal meets the 75% ARV rule, providing quality materials, and making my contractors understand the scope of work that it works.
Gotcha. Okay. Give us a little bit of training or advice on the contractors side of things. How do you find them? How do you make sure that they stick, to this? How do you do a scope of work, or and how do you you know, essentially make sure that they get paid, but for work that's done, and not that
Yeah.
it's not done.
So yeah, I'm gonna give you some secret sauce here, okay? A lot of people, even my co-agents, struggle with contractors, right? And I happen to be one of the very few. I do not struggle with contractors, right? And there is a secret sauce. It's not really a secret, but it kind of becomes a secret because no one else wants to do it, right? So here's the thing: your contractor is, of course, I mean, he's only there to do what work needs to be done, right? But you need to give him direction. You're in the steering. You're sitting in the driver's seat. You got to steer the car, my friend, right? You got to
Yeah.
steer the car. You got to provide your contractors with the right scope of work. You have to know how much things cost, right? You have to flood your contractors with business, right? You need to find a good contractor, give them small jobs to do, understand if they're good, move them to the next tier over, right? Give them bigger jobs, see how they're performing. And I do this with about 5 contractors on a consistent basis, right? I've got about 5 great contractors. I've also got a whole bunch of subcontractors for HVAC, electrical, plumbing, and I become their friend, right? I pay them so well and I pay them consistently. Most people, what they do is they'll do like a 50% down, right? And then they'll divide it up. I don't really do that. Sometimes I'll do 25% down and I'll divide up the
Hmm.
project into 7 weeks and I'll reward them with an extra $2,000, $3,000 bonus at the end of the project if they did a good job, right? And I don't just give them one project, I give them 5 projects, right? And so now they're feeding their family and I'm keeping consistent. My clients are going to them, I'm using them. Most agents won't even give their contractors to their clients. I give my contractors to my clients because I want my clients to get the same quality of work done that I'm doing. My contractors have my exact flooring that I use. They have my exact paint that I use. They've got my exact demo guys. They've got my HVAC guys on call, right? I subcontract out some other things, and I general contract some of the other things, right? So my contractor or my buyers use the same exact people as me. And so now if I'm selling 12, 13 homes a month, right? And I'm personally buying about 2 homes, 1 or 2 homes a month, right? And they're all rehabs, everyone's getting something to do. And I've got a guy that does my service calls on all my properties. So I have my VA manage my properties for me. They reach out to the service guys. They go out there. I've had like 4 service calls yesterday, right? Because it's been hot as shit in Columbus, 100 degrees,
Mm-hmm.
and 3 of the ACs, like they need coolant. And yes, they're out the next day, and they love me,
Yeah.
right? I take them out to eat dinner, right? Sometimes with me, right? All on the company card. Like last week, we went out, dinner, food, right? Drinks together. You treat them like a friend, they'll treat you like a friend. It's absolutely phenomenal.
Okay, amazing, amazing. All right, cool. So tell me a little bit about your people rules, right? You seem to be very good with people. You treat them very well. What are some rules that you live by, or some values, that you do
For
live
sure.
by?
Betray me once, never working with you again, right? That's a very simple rule that I follow, right? You betray me once, I'm never working with you again. Every single contractor knows that. And you losing your business with me means a lot, right? Whether it's a buyer, right? Whether it's a contractor, whether it's it's a property manager, right? I do so much volume and I give so much referrals to people that they will never do that, right? And my contractors, I've gone through so much trial and error, and I have 5 phenomenal contractors, right? They know and understand what I live by. They know they'll be paid, right? They know what my clients are, and I set expectations with my clients when I'm giving my contractors. Hey, you got to give this contractor, right? And I already speak with the contractors because my contractors are not there to do 3 bids or 3 walkthroughs on a property that they're going to buy, right? Hey, I'm giving you a contractor. Trust me, this is a good contractor, right? And he's got reviews. He's got a portfolio on their Instagram. I make sure they have a portfolio on their Instagram and a Google Drive of properties that they've done for me personally, right? And my clients, so my other clients can see, right? And that builds trust and credibility, right? And I'm like, trust me, trust, and I promise you, you're gonna get a ton of business, right? And I'd say my all 5 of my contractors, they're not on full-time payroll from me, but I think majority of them get over a couple $100,000 worth of business every single year from me,
Okay, cool.
right?
That's awesome. Yeah. All right. So I like those rules. Those are good. And then okay. So let me see. For a BRRRR, what are the typical things to find out? Like if someone is looking to get started with the BRRRR, right? How much down do they have to get? What kind of like loan product or lender product does the lender provide? Is it 10% down on the purchase price, 100% of the rehabs, and then what do they need to be at? Like okay, what is a typical scenario of a property that would work out for a BRRRR if like someone were to spot a deal that was like okay, well that works out,
Of
in
course.
terms of the numbers.
So I always tell my investors, numbers are your best friend, right? First and foremost. For example, let's say in your market, right? Let's say there's A class, B class, and C class, right? Right? Understand what ARV mark is a C class area versus B class, right? So, for example, if we were to say, Columbus, which is my market has A, B, and C class areas, right? So, if I'm selling properties in C class areas, what metric does it hit on average, right? If I'm doing a lot of data points in a certain area and I'm hitting consistently 75%, 75%, 75% on a certain deal, I will never sell a deal if it hits 80% on that in that area if majority of the other data points are hitting 75%, right? So that's rule number
Yeah.
1. Understand your numbers, understand your metrics, right? If B class areas in your market is 80%, but you get a deal for 75%, that's phenomenal, right? Let your buyer know, hey man, I normally see deals at 80% ARV, but I found this one at
Yeah.
75%. I think this is a buy, right? You should buy this, or I'm gonna buy it myself. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like, so understanding the metrics, understanding your market, um, and then for BRRRRs, really attention to detail, man. Attention to detail and scope of work is key. Most investors don't understand scope of work. Understand your scope of work, attention to detail. So I'm a very B-class investor myself, right? I love to invest in areas that are up and coming, and I love to do phenomenal finishes, right? My market is a bit more expensive than your typical Michigan markets, right? Or if you were to say in Ohio, like it's more expensive than Cleveland, or if you were to say it's more expensive than West Virginia or Kentucky, right? I have a more expensive market that I work in, right? So I don't scale as fast. If I were to work in another market like Detroit or Cleveland, I would have over 100 rental units right now, right? So I don't have that. But why, right? But maybe I'm still scaling at the same possible feature, but just with a less number of units. It's because if you look at my portfolio, I've got 100% occupancy across my entire portfolio. I don't even have 97% occupancy. I have 100% occupancy, right? And we'll hit sometimes, 95 to 90, but almost always we had a bottleneck for leasing because the PM wasn't, phenomenal at leasing. They're focusing on managing properties. I fixed the bottleneck. I hired someone, right? Not hire, but it's more of I built a relationship with a girl. I taught her how to lease because I'm phenomenal at leasing. I leased all my properties and I learned everything myself before I outsourced it. And I gave her my exact system on how to onboard Zillow leads and get the best quality of tenants in a property. Right? They lease my properties, they lease my tenants' properties, then we pass to the PM. It's like a whole funnel, right? You have the best contractors, best leasing agent, best property manager, and the best deal at the very front of the funnel, and the best title company.
Yeah.
You get investor rates all throughout. You have the best lenders, right? So lending, you work with one, hard money lender, then you work with three. I have three hard money lenders on call, right? I'm not going to name who it is. My investors know who they are. And I have two good PMs. I've got one good leasing girl, and I've got three good DSCR lenders. But in my network, I have about roughly around 500 to 600 DSCR lenders nationwide. But I picked out the best three, and I give them all my business.
Nice, nice. Okay. So for anyone watching, Al has a bunch of resources for you.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
looking to get started. He has the starter kit for
Exactly.
Midwest BRRRR investing, or Okay, cool. All right, so that's wonderful. So tell me a little bit about your goals. We talked about that personally, but I'd like to have the audience talk about how are you going to accomplish your goals and what your goals are.
Yeah, man. For sure. So my dad's also a real estate investor. So I mean, I I came from a family that has done real estate for the longest time. He's a developer overseas. My dad, he grew up very, very poor, and he built himself up. He was a politician. He also was a developer. We have roughly around 400 doors across seas, right? So I come from a real estate family. But again, the cost of those 400 doors is not the same as owning 400 doors in Columbus or other Midwest markets. It's probably the equivalent of owning 100 doors, right? So at a much smaller
Yeah.
scale, right? So it might seem like, oh, wow, that's so much, right? But it's really not that much. So my goal is in the next 2 years to scale up to 100 good properties, right? And pay attention, good properties, right? Whether it's student housing, right? Whether it's blue collar, areas that are up and coming, doing phenomenal, right? That it's going to become A minus or B plus in like the year, 2 years. So you can already tell what type of properties I invest in, right? I invest in really good properties, really good rehab. My goals it's to get to 100 doors in 2 years. So right now, I'll tell you what I'm buying. I'm buying a 4 unit B area, right? I'm buying a duplex B plus area. I'm buying a sub two deal as well. It's my first sub two deal ever.
Nice.
Ever. My first sub two deal, I got it this weekend, buying it from an older lady who bought a property about a few years ago, and she wants to get out of it. She's got a lien on it. We're gonna pay off the lien, and I'm gonna take it on. I'm personally looking at that one. So we're all in contract to buy those. 4 unit duplex and a single. And right now, I mean, I told my wholesalers, I've paid over $50,000 this year just wholesalers. Hey, whichever properties you have, if it hits my metric, I do not care. I'm not going to penny pinch on what you're making. I don't care. You can make $100,000 on a deal. If the deal makes sense to me, I'm buying it. I buy a lot of deals from wholesalers. I buy a lot of deals from my mentees, and I buy a lot of deals from the brokerage, right? So if the deal makes sense, I'm buying it. Also, same thing for my investors. We also look at a lot of deals, and it's just a phenomenal feeling, man. Helping people, and the goal is to scale to 100 units, and then within the next 5 years, get into development. My dad was a developer. I want to get into affordable housing here in Columbus, in C-class areas. That's my plan. So let's see how that turns out with how the market, market tides come.
Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Okay. All right. So, what is your advice for people that are looking to get started?
Hmm.
What what would you recommend they do?
Honestly,
You
man.
know, but there's different kinds of people. Like there's the investors type. Obviously, those people already have money, right? But for someone that's young, hustler, looking to get started, what do you recommend they do?
Yep. So I first got introduced to real estate 4 years ago. Been an agent for 2 years, right? So it's technically my fourth year in real estate, but 2 years as an agent that's actually working, right? About 2.5 years. The number one advice I can give, if I were to give advice to my 21-year-old self, again, choose one thing, live and breathe by that one thing, right? And just do that over and over and over again. And I promise you, it'll be yours. Manifestation is real, right? Work like you've never worked before. When I was working my engineering job, right? I woke up at 6 in the morning, right? Got ready, went to work, left the office, didn't even go home or gym or anything. I went straight to the other office, right? The brokerage, and I worked till 10:30 p.m. Went to the gym for an hour, came back home at 11:30, woke up the next day again at 6. And I did that every single day for 6 months straight. The weekends, I would wake up at 10 because I needed some sleep, went straight to the real estate office, right, at 10, had some breakfast, worked till 8:30, went to the gym, right, would hang out with the friends for an hour, 2 hours, go to bed, repeat on Sunday. There's no Sunday days that are off. Now I relax a bit more. I take my Sundays off because I feel like I'm more productive if I take my days off on the weekends. I'm much more productive. We do much more work. We do, amongst my employees, we do, I don't even know, like 160 to 200 hours of work per week. Right? So we're very effective. I've got people on call on Saturdays and Sundays, but I still work a couple hours on Saturdays. Even now, I still work 50, 60 hours a week. I used to work 80 to 100 hours when I first got started. So work, 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 and manifest it. I bought my dream car. I'm buying an Audi R8 in about a month, right? I've got a G-Wagon. And then, I have another car. I had a BMW. I love cars. I want to get 4 or 5 cars, all, sports cars. I manifested it, made it happen, and it's your life. Live how you want to live, and just work hard.
Okay, okay, cool. All right, so stick to 110 and just get it done. So when it comes to like, one of the things I would say your pivotal moments, when you're just getting started, do you recommend someone gets a mentor or how do you what do you think about that? Like, um, because a lot of people, they want to go at it, on their own and they can, but sometimes it's just better to get a mentor. So how do you think about that situation?
Oh yeah, that's key, man. A mentor is key. When I first got started, I had a mentor who was about 2 years older than me. He now owns around 75 doors here in Columbus. So find someone that's not way too ahead of you, right? But find someone that's where you want to be in 2 to 3 years, right?
Yeah.
So find someone that has done it, right? That's not super ahead. Like I can't go out there and find someone that's making $1 billion a year, right? It's just not gonna work. His way of thinking, his way of scaling is completely different than someone who's trying to get to $100,000 or $200,000 a month, right? So find someone. Then once you get there, right? Still have them as your mentor, but find a new mentor, right? It's a scale. So I'm actually working towards that. I have about so many people. I've got 10, 15 people reaching out to me every month on, hey man, I really want to work with you. I really want to have a meeting with you. Understand how you do BRRRRs. Understand how you're doing what you do on the agency side, how you do what you do on the BRRRR side, right? And so I'm working on something. Obviously, I can't provide everything for free, right? I have to have some sort of incentive for me to be interested in it. So we're working on a mentorship program, which should be released by the end of the summer. Which we're going to do the steps, A to Z, BRRRR investing in your market, providing you with the right resources, whether you're getting, materials from Lowe's, kind of the step-by-step process, providing you with all the right lenders, providing you with all the right DSCR lenders, hard money guys, the right contractors, how to find them, right? The right property managers, what to do, how to interview them, what to do on your BRRRRs to make it more effective, more efficient. what metrics to hit, and really just guiding you, having weekly calls, and it'll have some sort of a cost, which I don't know yet, but we're gonna take on probably 5 people. I like keeping things small. It's not about the money, but it's more so about providing value to people that actually want to help themselves. So we're probably looking to start something like that in our social media. We're growing very fast. Check out my social media. We talk a lot and give a lot of free info as well. So really, that right there.
Awesome, awesome, cool. And where are you on social media, and what kind of content are you posting?
So we started on social media roughly in November. So we did a lot of trial and error, right? I'm a big trial and error guy, right? Like as you can tell by my first bird story, I dive head first, right? I take big risks, but again, I became at a point where I'm very conservative now, and I mean, still take risks, but very calculated, right? So social media, we first tested out, doing walking through properties like that. We tried out motivational stuff. Then we started doing funny realtor stuff, and then we've gotten to a point where we kind of understood what the algorithm likes, right? And kind of adjusting to the algorithm and finding people don't like to hear you talk about analyzing deals every single day long. Save that for a YouTube video, right? Provide people with key values on a tip or something that that they can do, right? Or provide them something with the humor that they'll remember 6 months from now, right? So something like that.
Yeah.
So we're working on it. We've got a videographer that makes 15 videos a month for us. We're gonna do some lifestyle content. I love cars, racing. R8s, G wagons. But we're gonna do some stuff at the gym. I'm a big workout guy. I work out 6 days a week. Do Murphs on the weekends. Lift religiously 5 days a week. So working on that, and then kind of the real side of what we do on behind the scenes in real estate. So just really all of that in my lifestyle, and trying to get bigger on social media. So we're working on that this year.
Cool, cool, cool. And one last question before we let you go. You know, how do you manage your time? Like, how have you been able to do all of this? Like, you know, tell us your system or your philosophy, because time management comes down to everyone's life, and
Yeah.
we can always get some advice from that.
Yeah. So I actually love this question because I have a very good answer for this, right? I once met an agent, I won't say who. Um, he told me that every 15 minutes he has a timer go off, right? And I was like, what do you mean? Why? Why would you have a timer? Isn't that disruptive to your workday? He's like, no. I do time studies. I was like, what do you mean you do time studies? So he said he takes a week out every quarter, right? And he does a time study from 12 a.m. till 11:59 p.m., right? So, and you put it on an Excel spreadsheet. So 12, like let's say like 12 o'clock, 12:15, 12:30, 12:45, 1 o'clock a.m., right? You have that go
Yeah.
all the way down up till 11:59, right? On Excel spreadsheet, you have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Every 15 minutes, you need to record what you're doing, right? So let's say 12 to 7 a.m. I'm sleeping, right? I record. I'm sleep, 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 right? And then after that,
Yeah.
at 7 a.m., if I'm waking up, I'm making breakfast for 15 minutes, or I'm brushing my teeth, taking a shower, whatever. I mark out what I'm doing, right? When I come to the
Yeah.
office, if I'm working on let's say I'm working on the forums, right, of Reddit or Bigger Pockets or Zillow, or doing something, right? I'm marking it down, right? So at the end of the day, you can analyze how many times did I get up out of my seat and how many times did I waste in my workday. If I told you I worked 12 hours, did I really work 12 hours, right? I can see that I spent 3 hours having lunch, doing this, chatting with a buddy. If I chatted with a buddy, I got to write it down, right? So then
Right.
you start to really figure out, wow, I wasted 3 hours every single day, or 2 hours, right? That turns into 8 hours. I mean, I might as well just not work one day, right? Let's be productive 4 days of the week. Let's not work one day then, right? If I'm wasting 8 hours. So you really start to
Yeah.
figure out, okay, cool. This is where I'm wasting my time. Now, let's fill that in with something productive, and let's see how we can minimize that. So that agent really helped change the entire business for me. I started setting 15-minute timers, right, all throughout the day. I don't do this every single day, right? I do this once every quarter. And I also have my virtual assistants do it. I've got everyone, even my mentees, I have them do this as well. And they're like, Al, this really helps, man. Like, I really figured out that I wasted 2 hours on Monday. I wasted 3 hours on Tuesday. That turned out to be around 12 hours productive that I could have been doing something better, right? So when you really understand, like, okay, and then you go back and you're like, okay, these 15-minute slots, wow, I was spending this time pulling sales comps or rent comps. right? Or doing deal analyzing. My VA could have been doing this. So I spent a lot of time going back and creating so much training content for my VAs that they know how to do everything that I can do, right? A lot of times my VAs, people are confused. Are they, are my VAs, doing these write-ups? Am I doing it? How are these so accurate, right? It's just like I train them so well. I've spent multiple hundreds and hundreds of hours training all my virtual assistants, and then they train each other, and we have quality control, right? And now we just delegated so much of these tasks that, and it all started from a time study sheet, right? Taking the time study sheet
Yeah.
and then just understanding what you can delegate, where you're wasting time, and making yourself more productive. That increases your cost per dollar, right? And you become how valuable you really are.
I love that. I love that. I've actually done that before.
Have you? That's
Uh,
phenomenal.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. That's great. I love that. I love that tip. That's a big tip for people. So,
Yeah.
so yeah. All right. So, congrats. So, Al, where can we find you? And yeah. Just tell us where can we find you right
Yeah,
now
man. I
if
mean,
you're on
I'm,
social
I'm
media.
I'm growing my social media page, so would love some support. Would love to connect with anyone that's interested or just want to, that wants to talk about real estate investing or just bird investing. My handle is Alfath Ahmed. You guys can find me there. I post some funny stuff. I mean, we talk about real estate investing. If you guys want any lender connections, anything of that nature, anything I can help you with, please let me know. I'm an open book. I love to, talk. I'd love to provide resources and just provide value. So yeah, find me on my social media.
Cool, cool, cool. All right. And what would you like someone to take away from this podcast at the very end? Do you
Yeah.
have any word?
So Julian, phenomenal questions. Your questions really, truly are very, very engaging and really helps whoever's on the other side of the camera speak very well and open up. I think your questions are just phenomenal. A lot of podcast hosts, they can't ask the right questions, and you really can't find out, like what the true value is. So I think you've done a phenomenal job. So thank you for having me on. I really do appreciate it. Just last
Thank
final
you.
piece of advice is. As I mentioned before, man, choose one thing. It can be real estate, it can be something else, and just live by that one thing, right? Breathe that one thing, right? People will call you crazy. People often call me crazy because I work so much sometimes. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, I do the same exact thing. And if you look at the top billionaires in the world, right? Mark Zuckerberg, I mean, I'm not obviously anywhere close, but he wears the same T-shirt, right, every single day. I don't wear the same T-shirt, but I have literally outfits dedicated to what I'm wearing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, so I don't have to think. I like to be stylish. I like to be fancy, so I just pay a little bit more attention to detail to that. But haircuts, same time, right? Shower, same time. Gym, same time. Be very disciplined and live and breathe by that one thing. I promise you, it might take 6 months. It might take a year. I had imposter syndrome when I first got started. I was like, wow, is this really happening? But then when
Yeah.
I made my first 100,000, then it turned into 200, then a 300, then 400. I was like, wow, I have so much money. What do I do with this? Then it's like, okay, let's go and scale. Let's go and scale. And now money is just a material thing. It's like, okay, I'd love to make more. We recently, I mean, net worth wise, we became a millionaire, and we're scaling very fast to over 2 million.
Congrats.
Thank you. So, I hit $1 million at 26 years old, in net worth, personal net worth, and that's huge to me. I wanted. I mean, now it's the goal is to hit 2 million. Take the 2 million to 5 million. Now it's just like doubling. Brandon Turner has a saying, it's like, hey, whatever you're doing, stack it. Brandon Turner's from Bigger Pockets. He used to be, I think he has his own podcast now.
Yeah.
But if you have 1 million, make it two, two to four, four to eight, 8 to 16, right? Stack whatever you can, do what you're doing, scale it. That's the easiest way to do things.
Okay. All right. Congrats. Yeah. And thank you for coming on. It's been great having you on.
Thank
All
you,
right,
man.
guys. So this is the end of the podcast. And we hope for you to stay tuned for the next one. Okay.
Awesome.